So Waddy Crab, and welcome to my channel, YouTube channel, David Found. And tonight, this moment, we're going to talk about catching mosquitoes. We're not actually. We're going to talk about solving a problem you may be experiencing. And on your screen right now, you can probably see, I'm going to pull up the screenshot, but you can see that we have the warning window when I'm using Premiere Pro to do a transition, to make some transitions between two clips which are butted together, whereby as soon as you try and add a transition to the two clips to give you a transition, a dissolve or whatever else you want to do, cross dissolve or anything else for that matter, we get the error message which may be frustrating you. So let's solve this problem and let's fix it so that you don't have this problem ever again, and let's just address this issue so that we can move on with our video production work. So what is the issue? First of all, you see the window which pulls up as soon as you try to add a cross dissolve, some sort of transition to two clips, and it shows this window which states that there's insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. The repeated frame side of the transition isn't really such a big issue. It can be deemed as a creative touch, but most of us want to have a smooth transition which is retaining the video feel rather than having a still shot being frozen, or a frozen frame hold, and then of course the next clip continues on its way. So I've just tried to add a transition to these two clips. I have the warning side, the warning window, which is giving me that insufficient media. What does that mean? How do we fix it? And how do we avoid it happening again so that we can continue making our edits as smooth as possible? So this has happened. Let's just cancel that out. Let's just, in fact, why don't I just say okay? What it's going to do, it's going to make some frame holds or freeze frames, and basically add more media to the clips so that it can then transition between the two. Okay, so let's solve this problem. Let's just have a look at the screen. Now if I pull these clips apart, if I just clip on one, pull it apart, pull the other one apart, well, we don't need to pull them both apart because we now have a gap. Let's just look at this gap and let's find out what's going on. First of all, what we might do is actually go to our settings. Let's just go to preferences, go to timeline, and just have a look at what's going on with the timeline preferences right now to see whether or not this duration issue, this transition issue can be resolved in the settings for the timeline. On the timeline we see it says video transition default duration 50 frames. My timeline is set at 25 frames per second. That's the format I'm using. So what does that mean? 50 frames means of course 2 seconds of the footage. So what we need to do is say, okay, are we happy with a 2-second transition? That's 2 seconds of footage of the clip to the left and of course clip to the right. So it could be, that sounds like a dance actually, clip to the left, clip to the right. No, we won't do a dance, we could do head, shoulders, knees and toes as well, but well, let's continue with the fix for this it's a little bit of an annoyance, but it's something that can be resolved fairly easily. So my settings on my timeline in the preferences for Premiere Pro is set to 50 frames. If I change that to seconds, it says 2 seconds. So 2 seconds of course is 50 frames of footage. Let's just okay that. Excuse me. Ugh. Too many of these videos just recently. And so let's look at the timeline again. Now if I look at this clip, if I try to drag this clip to the right, it won't go anywhere. If if I try to drag the clip that's on the right to the left, it won't go anywhere. So if these two clips are joined together and then we try to make a transition between the two, we're going to get the insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. So how do we fix this problem? Well, let's just OK that out. We don't want it to be a stills or frame hold transition. So let's just kill the sound on this actually. And sorry, I do apologize, I've just actually recorded some sound. Let's just mute. Let's just mute this for the time being, whilst we just which one have I muted? Oh, I've not muted the right one. Let's mute both of those, and then we can just do the transition. Why have I still got volume? There's another one needs to be muted. I've got too many audio tracks. So here we are with muted sound going to the transition, and as you can see, what's happening is it's holding off it's making a frame hold or freeze framing so that we can then have enough media to play with. So let's just pull these clips apart again, and let's just look at what we can do to fix this problem. First and foremost, if we were to give the clip to the left, more footage by just dragging this over, now that's given that more footage because obviously it's not the end of the clip anymore. Or given that, if you just look at the duration, it's in fact it's set at 32.00. So if we push that back, we've now got about 100 frames in fact, so that's about 4 seconds. So what we do now, we'll just bring them together without touching the clip to the right. We're just going to bring those back together again and see what happens if we try and make a transition. What's happening is that the clip to the left, which has now got more footage, more frames to work with, is now basically not rejecting, but it's pushing the cross dissolve over to the clip to the right, which has no more footage, no more frames available. So that's how it's now compensating for the fact that there is no enough media for this to make the transition. So essentially what's happened is the transition is now placed on the clip to the right. Let's just play that through, and it looks like a fine transition. It's not too bad actually, is it? But in order to fix this, if we just clip onto that, we can push the transition to the left in the effects control window. But what that's done, it's actually added more. It's actually added frame holes, so it gives it more media to that, and it's actually freezing the other frame, freezing the clip to the left. It's freezing the clip to the right because it doesn't have enough media, and that's giving it a transition of a sort. Just click back onto that. If you go to the FX window, we can drag that back to where it was, or drag it completely to the left. We can drag this around to where we want to, and in most cases, if we go to the actual transition and we can go to center at cut, we can make selections here, so we can actually decide where we want the transition to transition from to. But in order to solve this problem, so we don't have any frame holding or any transitions which are utilizing the fact that it's actually creating stills images or stills frames, we're going to pull them apart again. We're just going to look at this clip. Look at this clip. This clip has got footage already to the left and to the left of it, so it's got frames available to it to work with. So if we push the clip to the left to a few frames to the right, we've now created media. So if I drag those together, and then we now go, just have a look at them a bit more closely, they are now butted together. If I highlight this one and then press Shift and highlight that one and use Control D, you'll see now that the transition is smooth. It goes through between both of these clips, without creating further frames, which are freeze frames, to give you that sort of momentary still image whilst it transitions between the two clips. So that's resolved that problem. Now, one thing you also need to know is that we can now position this dissolve. In fact, we can go to the, as we could before, but what we can do now, we can actually increase the length of the transition, both left and right. But what you'll start to see that you start to get chevrons added, because it's now encroaching on territory where the media is still not going to be enough for it to generate its transition. So if we look for that, bring that back, and then we drag it to the middle, so there's no chevrons or no diagonal lines being introduced, which basically is telling us that the clip to the right, in this particular case, will not have enough media to work with, not have enough frames to work with. So that's solving the issue of cross-dissolving or any type of transition whereby you're going to see that warning window telling you that there's not or insufficient media, and that it will actually create some more frames so it can actually continue with the transition. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you enjoy your production work, and hopefully today has been useful for you. Don't forget to subscribe if you already haven't. Ring the bell, I think that's what you say, and keep with me, stay with me, and become a long-term subscriber of my channel. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.